My first summer here, I was rotating in a lab over in the VA, and I heard the weirdest conversation between these two students, and they were arguing over which was worse, sexism or racism. And it was the dumbest conversation I'd ever heard. But it was also, it started to stand out to me at the end, like there's some weird ideas about race and racism here and about like whether it's solved or not.
It's one of America's poorest cities behind Detroit, Michigan.
I lived in San Bernardino. That's the last place I came from. It's considered the Inland Empire in Southern California, and it's a very depressing place. It looks like a war-torn city in some areas. I mean, there are places where roofs are falling in. There's still lead and asbestos in buildings. There's just, it looks like a devastated city. My mom was a teacher, and so even though we were poor, I did learn to value education. What's the story, Wishbone? We had PBS, so we had shows like Reading Rainbow and Bill Nye the Science Guy and Wishbone, my favorite. And so I love these shows, and these are how I came to understand the importance of education and reading and science and things like that, and things that seemed completely inaccessible because I was always in like not the best schools and not the best not the best educational materials. I mean, we lived in poor areas, so we just had poor people stuff. And so these shows really opened me up to a world that I didn't think even watching, I never planned to be a scientist. It just became something that seemed possible later in life. And so I really, really wanted to get out to a PhD program partly because I love science and I know that this is something that I'm good at, something that I understand and something that I can do well. But I also know that it pays well and there's benefits, and it could offer me a life that I would never be able to have if I just stayed living in San Bernardino. One of the guys who showed me around when we did our interview weekend, he's a gay black man. I was like, so what is it like being gay here? Because I'm thinking it's the West Coast. I'm assuming racism exists, but not crazy. And he was like, oh yeah, it's great being gay. I never thought to ask, what is it like being black here? People do not mind just yelling stuff out at us. Or just walking down the street or something. So that happened when I first moved here as well. And so I was like, okay, first of all, people don't know how to talk about race and racism here. They don't even think it exists. And second of all, they don't have a problem just yelling racial slurs at you on the street. And so it did become very apparent very early that I was black. And I say that way because being in Southern California, I had a lot of Hispanic friends and a lot of white friends, and then a handful of black and Asian friends. And so I had, it's a very mixed group of people. And I never felt black in Southern California because I dealt with racism in Southern California, but everybody deals with racism in Southern California, I feel like. I realized when I moved here that I was being treated like I'm black. That's all I'm allowed to be here. That's all people see of me. My mom is actually white, and I was raised with the white side of my family, and so I don't really know the black side of my family, and it's kind of a, it's very disconnecting. I feel more disconnected from the black side of my life, but then all of a sudden it's like, well, now I'm black, and that's all I am. And so it was a lot to deal with of I am more than a black person. I have to remember that. I have to not completely lose myself in this. I have to keep being more than just a black person. And so it was very strange moving here because I've never been forced to be black before. I can't dissociate myself as a scientist from myself as an artist. I have to be one whole person. I'm also a writer, and those things have to go together. And so that's part of why I want to make a children's television show. I need to be able to write and create something beautiful, and also teach science. I want to bring science to life for kids in the way that it was brought to life for me. And I wanted to make it funny and entertaining and science-based, but I also want it to address DEIA type issues, and I want it to address social justice issues, and I want to address things like homelessness, addiction in the home. I want to address things like abuse, just stuff that kids who are poor would understand very well. And I want it to feel accessible and like it's something they can actually do. I don't want their first exposure to like real science being in a university. And we keep talking in research about like, why are there not more Black people getting grants? It's like, well, there are not more Black people getting grants because there are not more Black people with PhDs. They don't have PhDs because they're not going to school. They're not going to school because they weren't taught to value education. They weren't taught to value education because education's always been boring. It's just been a thing you have to do. But in reality, school isn't that important for most kids in the ghetto. But my hope is that it's not just poor kids watching. I mean, I'm hoping that well-off kids will also watch, and while they might already get the science, I'm hoping that it introduces them to some of these bigger issues so that when they get to universities like this, they're not suddenly waking up like, oh my gosh, what's going on in the world? Why are people being treated so poorly? Like, I want them to see it young so that when they get to this point, they're ready to call it out and say, no, we're not doing this. We're not part of this. I mean, people seem to think it takes like some special capacity to be able to be a decent human being, to not be racist, to be able to step up and say like, this is not okay, you cannot treat me this way, or this is not okay, you can't treat us this way. But I don't do it because I'm brave, I don't do it because I'm courageous, I do it because it has to be done. And I'm always terrified. I'm always scared. I'm always scared about how it's gonna backfire. I'm always scared about my future. What if I can't get a job after this? What if people hate me? What if I piss off the wrong person? I am constantly scared, but I keep doing it because it has to be done. Like, somebody has to say these things. Somebody has to keep people here focused on the real issues.
All right. So I study non-somatic influences on descending pain modulation, and vision is the primary.
There are times when I definitely feel overwhelmed by it, and it's like, why does this come down on me? But then I realize like I do have the ability to communicate these thoughts. I do have abilities. Like I gave a research town hall back in March, and tons of people reached out to me to let me know that they really appreciated it. And apparently it was the first talk where somebody actually gave like practical suggestions for how to deal with racism. It's like, okay, wow. So people really appreciated it. And so at first, when people started reaching out to me, it's like, okay, this is a lot. Like, a lot of people want to share their stories with me now because I shared mine, and it's really intense and it's a little overwhelming. I'm just a grad student. Like, I don't know how to fix any of these issues. I just told my story. That's all I did. But then I realized that people weren't looking at me to fix it. They just needed people to talk to. They just needed someone to talk to. They just needed to get their story out there. And so it felt less overwhelming then, and I realized like, this is actually a gift that I have. Like, I can sit and listen. I feel compelled to use that gift. I just don't want to use it here anymore.